Hello, everybody. Today's guest is Jeff Wickersham, creator of the Warrior Dad program, and Jeff is on a mission to help guide and lead 1 million dads to change their family tree forever. Fellas, dads, husbands, this one's definitely for you. But to all the moms and wives out there, I think you'll find this pretty interesting to hear some of the things that dads and husbands struggle with and what some of the resources are out there for them, because there's not many. Thank you for listening. For those of you who are new, I'm Anthony Francis, the host of the Successful Working Parents podcast, where we learn from working parents how they're able to balance it all and still thrive. By the way, next week we are talking about all the family dynamics in the 1990 hit Home Alone. So make sure you watch it before then. My guests and I, we have a great time, a lot of fun, kind of breaking down all the interesting parenting decisions and choices and a lot of wacky family stuff in that movie. Anyway, if you enjoy this episode, please share it with a friend, like and subscribe. On to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents still working on the name. My guest today, he is the creator and leader of the Warrior Dad Experience, father of two. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Wickersham. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Anthony, thanks for having me, man. Pumped and excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today. Well, let's just dive right into what is the Warrior Dad Experience?
Yeah, so the Warrior Dad is a movement collection of dads who are choosing to stand up and lead their families from the front, right? That want to crush life personally and professionally. And I think so many times we've been led to believe that we can only do one or the other. I'm here to tell you can do both, right? And we lead by example. We're the tip of the spear for our families. And now more than ever in society, we need more dads that stand up and are those type of leaders for their family. So I help guide, mentor, teach dads to put systems into place, habits, rituals, transform their identity, transform their habits, all while being in a collective brotherhood. And the results have been just amazing to watch as dads choose to intentionally pour into their families, intentionally be that leader that their kids so desire, and it's been quite humbling to be their guide on their journey.
So let's say I'm going through the Warrior Dad Experience. Is it one-on-one coaching? Is it like videos I'm watching? Like, what's my experience like?
Yeah, so we have a weekly call. We have daily accountability where you're checking in. So we have one-to-one, one-to-many kind of connection points, and that camaraderie, that brotherhood, I've just found is so crucial, especially for men. We kind of tend to be lone wolves, especially as we get older. And listen, when we were most successful, many times, I mean, I played sports in high school. I was part of a fraternity in college. Many times it's when we're around other men that are doing pretty amazing things, or we're in a collective group that's striving for some goal. So I love the brotherhood component of it. And it's, the other critical component is I'm in there doing the work with you every single day. I've done these habits, these rituals, the morning fire system for 7 years now. So I'm a practitioner, meaning I'm in the trenches getting after it, even when we don't feel like it. So I love that kind of accountability and consistency that leads to discipline on a daily basis.
Is it a set amount of time, or is it recurring over monthly? Or
yeah, so it's 10 weeks in length, and I do that on purpose. We've all heard 21 days to create a habit. We all know that's completely BS. It's why the third week in January is the most depressing week of the year. Science now says 21 to 67 days for a long, life-sustaining, changeable habit. That's why it's 10 weeks, 70 days to go over that threshold. And, the results kind of speak volumes into the dads crushing it moving forward.
Yeah. I've heard 67 days is makes more sense than 21.
Yep.
So how and why did you pivot? You had a career in the corporate world, and then you went to creating this and doing this full time. Like, talk me through that journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, nearly 10 years ago, I wear a pink wristband on my right forearm. I lost my mom to breast cancer. So, that was kind of spark number one in my journey, watching the woman that brought me into this world take her last breath in front of me. That fragility of life 2x4, man, smacked me clean upside the head. And I was like, okay, what do I truly want to do? We want to get one trip around the sun. I still remember last deep conversation I had with my late mother. She was scared she'd be forgotten. And I think the proverbial torch was kind of subconsciously passed to me, where it was like, I don't want to get to the end of my days and be scared I'd be forgotten. So fast forward 9 months later, I live outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was asked to relocate to either Phoenix or New York City. I chose not to do that. I said, I'm going to go out on my own. I ended up opening up a gym because I was always into physical fitness, loved working out. Did that for about 4 years. But Anthony, I was still doing the things I was doing in my late teens, 20s, and 30s, whether it was alcohol, whether it was porn, whether it was gambling, whether it was all those things that just didn't light me up and were kind of kryptonite dust. Not going to kill me in the moment, but really weakened who I was as a husband, as a dad, as a leader, and a man. And then through the gym, I started to invest in myself. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give ourselves, is to invest in our personal development. I mean, I probably spent, north of 70K in the last 8-9 years on my growth, taking bits and pieces of each of those and kind of transforming it into a system and what I operate on now. And 2 years ago, I had a buddy who's a pretty heavy ultra marathoner, had a running buddy, dad of 3, going through a hard time. He said, you know what, you should reach out to Jeff. He's got some things figured out. Unfortunately, the dad never reached out and he ended up taking his own life, committing suicide. So that was when I was like, you know what, I want to help dads. Like, there's no playbook. I didn't have it when I was a younger dad. We invest in our professional growth, multiple thousands of dollars, but do we ever read a book to be a better dad? Do we ever have somebody that maybe has gone through it and learned some lessons and applied them? So that's really where the Warrior Dad was birthed. And now the mission is 1 million dads, 2+ million kids by January 1st, 2053. That's my North Star. That's where I'm headed. That's where I'm going to get. And I feel like when we do that, we're going to change the face of fatherhood, but we'll also change society as well.
Love it. So why do you think there are less resources for dads? And what do you think that leads to?
I think it's a cultural thing, right? I just, so many generations, it was like rub some dirt on it and just get tougher, right? Like figure it the heck out, stomach it. And I did that in some of the deepest, darkest times in my life. Was I don't need help, like, because ego gets involved. I'll just figure it out. I'll just toughen through it. And man, there is no self-made man. We all have had help. You see somebody crushing it, they've had help. Like I just shared, I've had coaches, mentors, guides in my journey to help me in that process. So I think the ego gets involved. And then we say, I'm good. I'm a good dad. Well, do you want to be a great dad? Like good to great or great to legendary? And when we have that frame of being growth and having a little dose of humility, and Anthony, I'll say right away, like, I'm not the greatest dad. I'm always going to get better. And I'm a lot better now than I was when my boys were younger. But just having an open mind and growing and being humble and saying, hey, yeah, I'll take some advice. I think that's a key component to why so many stay stuck and there's not many resources out there for them, because I think, dads are kind of forgotten in the mix. And I was on a podcast months ago and they said, where do you think it started? And I said, Al Bundy on Married with Children. Like he was laughed at, like he was this goof. Like, and everybody made fun of him. And that was like how generations grew up, like thinking how dad's going to be. Right. So
all the dads, right? Homer Simpson, like Peter Griffin, like all those dads.
Yep, for sure.
This is a little bit of a loaded question, but what do you think makes a good dad?
One, being intentional with your kiddos and your time and your wife. And it's so easy to be distracted, especially these days, right? With cell phones. I mean, focus, I think Cal Newport said in his book, Deep Work, like focus is the 21st century superpower. So being intentional and so grateful for the time you get to spend with them. And then in addition, I feel like it's our duty as dads to give our kids the tools, the strategies, the tactics that we didn't have growing up. And so many times things are passed down generationally and you see it through multiple generations. Maybe it's like being overweight. You see grandpa's overweight, dad's overweight, son's over. Like we've got to break those chains, and it takes work. It takes effort, but you can be that one dad that changes his family tree forever. So, I think that is so huge in being a great dad, right? Paying it forward to that next generation. That's our duty. We chose to become a dad. You got to equip them with those tools, strategies, and tactics. That's one of the reasons, Anthony, I gave up alcohol 3 years ago. My sons were 13 and 11 at the time. I want to chart a different course to tell them there's a different option. My oldest son has been at parties where there's been alcohol. He's chosen to take that uncommon path and say no, which I give him a lot of credit for. I didn't have that courage, but I didn't have those deep conversations about, hey, you want to be an athlete? how come's that going to help you get there?
Yeah.
Right. So paying it forward to that next generation, being intentional daily, loving on your kids, answering all those bids. That's a great dad to me.
Yeah, I like that. From your work with dads, go through your go through your experience, or just when you interact with them, what do you think is one or two things they struggle with the most as a dad?
Number one, consistency. I think they'll start things for a week
Yeah.
and then it goes, hey, what, life throws things at them, and life is going to throw light. Every single day is a fight. It is. And when life pushes against us, a lot of us will just kind of give up and say, all right, I'll do it tomorrow. And then one day becomes two, becomes a week, becomes a month, and then they're back in that same spot. So lack of consistency is a huge one. And then what happens when you have a lack of consistency? Well, you stop things. It erodes the trust with your wife because your wife sees it, your kids then see it, and it just erodes trust. So consistency would be number one. Number two would be discipline. They kind of go in step, like doing the things you should do daily that light you up and set the example for your kiddos. It's hard to be disciplined, but man, when you're disciplined, you have that foundation, you have that structure, you have standards, you have non-negotiables in your life. All of a sudden, life is actually a little bit easier because you don't negotiate with your mind. So consistency, discipline, and then the last one is failure to answer the call to be your best. Anthony, you have it. I had it for years. I numbed it up with vices. It's that itch on the back of your neck that says you have more inside. You can be more, do more, have more, personally, professionally. We all have that itch. We all have that voice calling out to us. Until you answer that call, you will not be fulfilled. And it's just so important.
Yeah. Fire me up, Jeff. Fire me up right now. Well, how do we develop more discipline?
Starting small, simple, easy. I was actually just having a conversation with my uncle about one of his daughters earlier today, and he wanted her to start an exercise routine. She's a little bit overweight. And I said, start small, simple, easy, laughable. Discipline. We live in hey, I can order something on Amazon and it might be here this afternoon, or it'll definitely be here tomorrow, like instant gratification. We want to have discipline like a grand slam, walk off, bat flip, home run. It just doesn't happen that way. We got to start small, simple, easy, almost laughable. Crawl before you walk before you run. Hey, you want to exercise, for example? You haven't exercised in 7 years? Don't go to the gym for 60 minutes for an entire week. You'll be so sore, you won't be able to walk up and down the steps or get off the toilet. So what do? Go for a walk for 5 minutes for a week and celebrate that you did that. Next week, go for 10 minutes and start to layer on. We need to build, and we're just so wired to want six-pack abs in 6 minutes, a funnel to blow up our business and be $1 million and life's easy. It's not going to be. We got to start small and discipline, consistency, building habits. Small, simple, easy, almost laughable. When you do that, you're going to be successful, and then you can build over the long term.
Yeah, I like that. Well, when I think about like the different aspects of like a life, it's like the exercise, the nutrition. There's like the finances, the career, like the love, the happiness. When you look at those different areas, like, do you find that the dads you work with are struggling with one in particular, or like what do you feel like are like really good levers to pull there?
Yeah, I would say most times they're doing pretty darn well from a career perspective because I think we're wired to provide.
Yeah.
It's wait a second, I'm missing connection with my son or daughter, or maybe my wife and I are passing in the hallway through the night and we don't really connect much anymore. And then it's also having a system to operate at a peak level to dial in your energy. You mentioned fitness, you mentioned nutrition. I start even before that, sleep. If you're not getting a good night's sleep, and I was struggling a little bit earlier in the week, and the last 3 nights I've had amazing night sleeps. I am on fire with energy, and we don't look at those fundamental things. So I would say finance, business, we're crushing it. It's, hey, how do we pour into our kids? How do we use that time that we get with them, right? Science says that by age 12, 75% of our time with our kiddos is gone. By age 18, 95% of the time we're going to spend with our kids is gone. We only get one opportunity to be a dad with our kids in our house. Yeah. So how are you going to leverage that? How are you going to, back to my point before, pay it forward to that next generation and give them the soft skills that aren't taught at schools, elementary, middle school, high school, college. It's grit, it's resilience, it's tenacity, it's work ethic, it's discipline, it's consistency. All those things the dads build themselves, but then they share it with their kids, and that's amazing to watch. When all of a sudden a dad, and this just happened last week, he texted me in one of our groups and he said it was amazing. I was down doing some workout, some push-ups, and my 6-year-old joined me and repped out push-ups with me, and all of a sudden that's a connecting moment. And like that's truly amazing when I see that kind of happen from the dad leading from the front.
I'd really love to hear some of your thoughts on the state of young men in America right now. I feel like it's a pretty big topic, especially as we record this in the, in light of the election, right? Mm-hmm. I think that there's like some narratives around, young men feeling a little bit lost, or like the government's, doesn't have their back in the same way. And that's kind of why they were attracted to one party over another. And then at the same time, there is this need for more resources like this, but there's also this like counter narrative about toxic masculinity and like the manosphere, like kind of like having one frame of reference or a kind of one point of view. I'd be really curious to hear, like, what are your thoughts on that landscape, and how do you feel like you can kind of fit within the warrior dad system?
Yeah, great question. I think number one, we can control the controllables. And regardless of who you voted for, what you think, what are your thoughts? Like, control what you can control in your family. Control what you can control as the dad for your family. You can control what you're doing from a workout, it's habit, exercise, nutrition, sleep, how you interact with your kids. That is going to give them so much more of a blueprint or roadmap than anything the government's going to do at this point. So, that's what I would say. Number one. Number two, yeah, I hear toxic masculinity, but we need strong masculine men to stand up from the front. And I am one of those, but I will tell you, Anthony, I cry in front of my boys. I get emotional because I lean into the love side, right? And the Greek definition of the word hero is protector. But that protector secret power is love. So we can be strong, we can crush it in the gym, and I do with my boys, but one of the most proud things that my wife and I are with our two boys is they're 16 and 14. Still, when they leave the house, they'll come in and find me, give me a hug and say, "I love you, Dad." And they do that to my wife. So you can be strong, masculine, but you can also be very, very emotional, very, very connected. Share your journey, some of the deep, darkest times in my life when I failed, when I took the easy way out. I've shared with my boys to give them wisdom that they maybe will make a different choice in their lives. So I think back to like crushing it personally and professionally, you can be the alpha male, the warrior dad, but that warrior dad pours into his kids and loves on them absolutely the same way and with the same intensity that he does, and push it from a overall life perspective.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, it's just tricky because we do need more strength in men in some ways, and in some ways, I think we also want to avoid this like division over like what it means to be a man, and like what's okay to do and what not to do. And I think it could be a fine line, and it's great to see you sort of just unabashedly promoting what you promote.
And listen, I will tell you, it's easy on either side of the fence to bash, right? And when you're on social, you're getting fed these beliefs, and I've had discussions with my wife because she said, from time to time, "Well, I don't need a man." And I said, "Hold on a second. Yes, you do." Like let's not create that sort of thing out into the universe and have my sons, our sons hear it. Two, let's come together and say, "Yeah, I do." Just like I need you, right? We both need ourselves. So I think taking a breath, having a calm discussion about it is powerful. But hey, the masculine energy is important, but you can also love on your family and be emotionally connected and emotionally available in addition to that.
Yeah. So talking a little bit more about your own experience as a working parent, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on like how do you make sure that you make time for your family, right? especially being more of an entrepreneur, like you can obviously be like as busy as possible. So how do you find time to balance everything?
Number one, I block out time, right? If my boys have football games on the schedule, they're blocked on the schedule. I do not miss those things. And when they're in basketball season, I block it off. And typically I'll block off time of when they get home from school, right? And then in addition, I've told them that if you make a bid for my attention, the answer is always going to be yes, unless I'm on a podcast like this or a sales call with a prospect or a coaching call. The answer will always be yes. So what does that mean to them? That means, hey, Dad, you want to throw around the football? Yes, absolutely. Right. And I go and I answer that bid. So carving out time, we waste so much time throughout our days on our phones and just being distracted. By putting in those barriers and making sure, hey, if they're getting home today at 2:30, my calendar's booked and just busy from 2:30 on, so I'm here. If they need me, I can take them to practice, I can do whatever, carving out the time. And then once you carve out that time, well, then you know how much time you can dedicate to work. And it's amazing. There's this Parkinson's law of time. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Anthony. Have you?
Yeah.
It's like when you carve out that time, all of a sudden you can get what used to take 8 hours, 6 hours. It's like if a listener, if you've ever gone on vacation, when are you most productive? The 2 days before you go on vacation. Why? You know you got to get stuff done, so you don't do anything on vacation. You can leverage that in your life in other areas.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically you get stuff done in the amount of time you give yourself to get it done.
Correct.
Yeah. You mentioned the morning fire system earlier. Could we get a little sneak peek into what that entails and what maybe some takeaways people can start doing in their own morning?
Yeah, I mean, it's controlling the bookends, so PM and AM. We can't control a lot of the chaos, especially as working dads in our lives, working parents in our lives, but you can control what you do at the end of the day, wind down to get a great night's sleep. And then first, when you wake up in the morning, stacking wins to start your day, eliminating distractions and stacking wins. So I'll give you 3 that I do every single day and have done for almost 7 years. And when you wake up, full glass of water. Drink a full glass of water when you wake up. Why? Well, the longest stretch of the day we go without water is while we're sleeping. Your brain, your lungs, your heart, 70+% made of water. Drink a full glass of water. It will energize you. It will hydrate the system. That's an amazing win. Like, what is that? 3-5 seconds, and you're already stacking a win. From there, love to move the body. We are physical beings. Like literally, I was just listening to something that 25% of kids or 33% of kids now are overweight or obese. Like we have such a challenge with that. We need to lead ourselves. How do we do that? Move a little bit in the morning. That's win number 2. And the last one, meditation, breathing, spending some time in silence, just collecting your thoughts. That's amazingly powerful. So those are 3 wins you can stack every single day. I've done that for, like I said, almost 7 years straight. And it gives you that standard that every single day, it's nobody else's external wants, desires, or needs impacting me. I take care of myself first. And when I do that, I feel freaking fantastic and I can show up better for my family, show up better for my business, show up better for my clients, all of those downstream impacts that it can have.
I think a pretty common experience for dads is letting, the dad bod and just kind of like becoming a little bit out of shape, especially maybe they were athletic when they were younger and they used to go to the gym, and then, things just happen, right? Life gets in the way and this and that, and you're in your late 30s and you're just not really happy with what you see in the mirror anymore. What do you say to guys that are experiencing that, and what are some things that they can start doing to feel better about that?
Number one, you got to commit to something big. Like commit to a 5K, commit to a half marathon, commit to a Spartan race, commit to something. And then when you commit, all of a sudden the motivation comes in. So many times people are like, well, I want to start out an exercise routine. It's Friday right now. I'll start on Monday. And then Monday comes, they don't start. So when you commit to something, and I've done that for the past 5 years, it's amazingly powerful. Like 5 years ago, I committed to my first Goggins 4x4x48 challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh my God, you did that? Yeah,
I did twice. And it drove
say what that is.
You run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. So you start at 11 p.m. Friday night. You don't finish till 7 p.m. on Sunday. First time I did it, hardest thing I've ever done because you're
Yeah, I
literally sleeping
bet.
an hour and a half and then you're up and running 4 miles again. Did it again, crushed it. But the commitment caused me to give up alcohol for 90 days. I was training, a couple years, a bunch of years ago. And it caused me to run more, eat healthier, all those things. So commitment is first. And then I've done an ultra trail marathon. I did a crazy challenge I created, but you got to commit to something big and then you'll fall in line. In addition, if you're one of those dads that in your 30s and 40s, you got the dad bod, you're overweight, now is the time to set yourself up for success in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Muscle is one of the most important things to build so you have longevity. And I'm 49 and a half. I'm going to be 50 in April. I'm lifting more weights than I have ever in my life because I am dialed in and I want to get ahead so I can play around with my great grandkids and chase them in the yard, right? So, number one, commit. And then number two, this is the time to get ahead. And you're going to say, hey, I don't have time or I got an injury. Bullshit. Like, just do it. Exercise is like a magic pill. They say when you exercise, and that's why I do it in the morning, it gives you a 12-hour energy and mood booster, focus and mood booster. So it's like a little bit of Ritalin, a little bit of Prozac. Improves your focus, improves your mood. Just do it and start small, easy. Start doing it. Maybe get a buddy to do it with. And all of a sudden you're up on your toes. And that just kind of reminds me, Anthony, I did a post the other day because I don't drink anymore. What for 20 some years of my life, what was it getting together with my buddies? It was like, hey, let's go to the bar and have a drink. Now I have buddies that let's go meet I literally texted one of my buddies, let's meet at the hill tomorrow and let's go for a ruck, 6-mile ruck in the morning. And that's how we'll connect. So, change that narrative. And, now is the time to get ahead in your 30s and 40s. So you're not so far behind in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Is the 4x4x48 the hardest physical challenge you've done?
No. So after I did that twice, I said, all right, I got to think something else. I wanted to run a marathon, but not necessarily put the time in. So
I mean, I was just want to say I've ran a marathon. The 4x4x48 sounds harder than the marathon.
There you go. So 2 years ago, I did the what I've renamed kind of the Warrior Dad Challenge. It's going to be out in 2025, but you do 26 rounds of a 1.01 mile run, 100 reps of something, 75 reps of something, 50 reps of something, and you do it for 26 rounds. So I did it 2 years ago, and it was 100 push-ups, 75 sit-ups, and 50 pull-ups. It took me
26 times.
26 times. So at the end, you're running a full marathon, 1,300 pull-ups, 1,950 sit-ups, and 2,600 push-ups. It took me 16 and a half hours. It was the hardest thing I've ever physically, mentally did. I started at 7 a.m. I finished at 11:30, and it pushed my limits. At one point at the end, I thought I might go in a rabbito and die, but I got it done. And my oldest son afterwards came down and he said, because they ran a couple legs late with me, and they said, "Dad, I'm so proud of you. Who could have done that? 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, 1 in 100 million." I said, "Man, that was the hardest thing I've ever done." So to answer your question, that was it. That challenge.
Did you eat and during? You must have eaten some.
Not as much. I ate one meal and it just sat in my stomach like a ton of bricks. So it was more liquids, gels, things of that nature. Some mixes that I had to get it done. Bananas definitely. And cramping became an issue, and I got tennis elbow last 6 rounds from all the push-ups and pull-ups. So it was a challenge.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. So are you going to do it again in 2025?
I am, but right. I'm eliminating the pull-ups because my elbow just won't take it at this point. So I'm going to probably do air squats, sit-ups, and push-ups, and then get it done.
Well, I look forward to seeing that on socials. I'll keep an eye out. The air squats plus the running is going to be a tough combo.
It is, but it's amazing. Like when you get in this growth framework, Anthony, like I did legs of it to prepare, and I was doing sit-ups and I didn't have my feet anchored, and my hamstrings were cramping on the runs because I was using my hamstrings in sit-ups. Well, all of a sudden I figured out, anchor your feet. And then my hamstrings went away. But I had a Theragun. I had all kinds of things to get me through that craziness.
Yeah. I mean, I've done the Murph before, which you've probably done the Murph workout. So it sounds like that's a pretty very mild version of that. Um, you mentioned not drinking alcohol a couple times. This is a topic that's interesting to me. I do like to drink alcohol. I've done like an occasional month off. And for people that would like to consider drinking less, I think it is a challenge because of the social aspect.
Yep.
I don't drink really at home. Like it's just kind of socializing. It's hard. So like, what advice do you have? Really more so for like when you are in those scenarios, because yes, like we can just go for a run instead, but like when you're actually in a social scenario where other people are drinking, like what advice do you have?
So the first year was obviously very challenging for me because I had spent 28 years of, in my late teens in college fraternity in my 20s. I mean, there was a lot of binge drinking.
Yeah.
So first year I got dreams and got, of people slip me drinks and I go off the wagon, it was kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Choose to just drink something different. I mean, there's a lot of non-alcoholic beers out there. I drink hop water. It's almost everywhere now. It's got a little hoppy taste to it. I mean, it smells like beer. Literally, I had one last week grilling outside, and I went to kiss my wife, and she got home from work, and she said, "Are you drinking?" And I said, "No." So, like, you can use that. And here's the other thing, Anthony. What I found is people don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Like we think they're going to care, but after the first interaction, or if you say, "Hey, I'm just choosing not to drink. I'm trying it out. I want to be the best version of myself." People don't care. People care many times, and I heard this from some people because it shines a mirror on themselves, and all of a sudden they got to look at themselves if they've got a problem, or if they're having a couple of drinks and they just know the next day they're not crisp, they're not clear mentally, they're not focused, they're not doing the things they should do. That many times. So I had people come out of the woodwork and say, "Hey, I'm doing it too. I just haven't told anybody." And I've had more and more kind of step away from it because they know it's that kind of anchor holding them to that next, not getting that next level of success. And typically when we want to grow, we don't necessarily need to add too much. We just need to eliminate the stupid stuff that we know doesn't add value in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I think it's good to keep in mind, like people really don't care.
Mm-mm.
And I think it's very common to be worried about what people will think and say whenever you want to do anything. And I think people don't give a shit really. They got their own stuff going on, right?
So true. We're communal, right? Like we want to be parts of tribes, of brotherhoods, of be accepted. And when you go away from the common path and choose your own path, it can be very, very scary. But I will tell you, once you do it once and you're like, all right, nobody really cares, I'm going to do other things. Right. And that's kind of what's happened in the last 3 years of my life for sure.
All right, we're going to move into the final segment called Jeff's Advice Corner. So I'm going to ask you for some advice on a few things. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. What's your best piece of advice for working parents?
Man, time is our most precious resource, and just make sure you're intentional daily with your kiddos, because you'll blink and they'll be 18 and going off to college. So just be aware of your time, and creating experiences and micro moments on a daily basis is so much more important.
What advice do you have for someone who is about to be a parent and still has a career they want to focus on?
Ooh, you got to have a system to operate from, and pour into the kiddos. Some learn from others that have done it and are crushing it.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
To be a constant learner, to be curious and a constant learner.
I like that one. What advice would you give to your former self?
Everything's going to be all right, and just stick to being consistent and follow the path.
What is your biggest piece of advice for all the dads listening out there?
You get one opportunity to change a family tree forever, and you can be that. Like, you can be that dad. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times, and your kids need you now more than ever to be strong, to be a positive force, to lead, guide them, to see a vision for their future and pour into them. So be that one dad that changes his family tree forever.
Love it. All right, Jeff. Well, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you or learn more about you? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go out to my website if they want to grab a time. I love talking to other dads. It's www.thewarriordad.com. If they want to check out my podcast, I've got a daily podcast. I drop 5 episodes a week. The Warrior Dad podcast out on all major platforms. In addition, YouTube channel, The Warrior Dad. I drop some videos on a daily basis out there. Just a nugget, little piece of wisdom that you can apply into your life.
Awesome. Well, Jeff from the Warrior Dad, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anthony.